So Bekitzer, we have three cases.
Okay, the first case is the ox does the damage.
Ox damages the owner of the hus.
But that's case one.
And what's the din?
Case two, what?
What's the din?
Bala Shor's Chayiv.
Bala Shor is Chayiv. Pasha.
Case two is that Chuzak Bo, he's damaged by it. Chuzak is the Balabayit is damaged by the ox.
Right.
And what Rashi is saying, Shenikal Pal Bo, if he stumbles over the ox is there,
right,
and he trips over that ox,
right,
the Bala Shor is Chayiv.
Not used to having an ox in his courtyard, so that very place that he was walking, I guess the animal was over there and he tripped on him, I guess, something. So who's liable for that? And so the Balabai suffers damage, and so the owner of the shore is liable for that damage?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
He's liable for the damages of the... Okay, so in both of those cases, he's liable for damages. The owner of the animal.
Right.
What's the Hiddush of... after I've been told the first case, what's the Hiddush of the second case? We understand the animal goes ahead and gores the guy and damages him. Of course, he's going to be liable, the owner of the animal. The other case is, he was walking in his chutzner and he tripped over this animal. It's not supposed to be there.
Right.
The owner's also...
Say it's his own fault.
You would have thought to say it's the owner's own fault because the animal was...
He didn't look where he was going.
He didn't look where he was going?
Right. He was negligent.
You had to put
The owner of the property was negligent.
You'd say, well, maybe the owner should look where he's going. So if he should look where he's going, it's his fault that he tripped, not the fault of the ox that was in the way.
Okay. Don't usually say that, but... Let's say there. So the third case...
It's similar to what you had before about the guys putting the cod in the way. The guy, if he tripped over the cods, the Gedera put these pots in the way. He trips over the pot. He'd be responsible for putting the pots there. It's the same issue. He's tripping like that. With the shores as you had with the pots. What's different is the third case. Which is why we...
I don't know. I think the second case is difficult. In other words, does it make sense that we would say to the owner of the property, why didn't you look where you were going to see this thing? It's not supposed to be there. It's there without reshus? I wouldn't have thought to say that. I would have said, push it. The guy has got a right to walk in his own property. How's he supposed to know that there's ox that's walking around? This cool boat. Okay. And what, he tripped on the shore, and the shore was walking? The shore was standing? The shore was stationary?
It only says damaged by the shore. And Raji is saying by tripping. It's not saying what the status of this, where the shore was. Just the ox was there. The ox was there, and he tripped on the ox.
Sounds like the ox was stationary.
Right. But it's almost...
Yeah, because there's two cases. There's the ox damaged the homeowner.
Actively.
The homeowner was damaged by the ox. So obviously one is active, one is passive. Right? Otherwise, why would you say two of them?
We also have cases. We've also had cases early in Gemora about tripping on the. I think I had a camel. The camel was in the way he tripped on it. He responsible.
Okay. Okay. So whether the animal's active or whether the animal's passive, the owners of the animal is going to be liable when this animal causes damage. That's the thing, though. I mean, the animal didn't cause any damage. He's just standing there.
Right. That's
Oh, so you're saying that's the Kiddush.
right.
That's the Kiddush. In the case where he's actively damaging the guy, of course he's going to be liable. We would have thought to say, in this case, he's not actively doing anything.
Right.
He's the one that did it to himself.
Right.
He did it to himself. You're saying he did it to himself. So if that case he did it to himself, he can't. The owner of the animal is not going to be liable. This animal didn't do anything. In order to be liable for the damage of the owner, you would have thought to said that the animal's got to do something.
Right.
He didn't do anything. Okay. And the third case. So now the animal is
The animal
Rava.
dropped down. Ravat's patur is exempt. The owner of the animal is exempt if the homeowner trips over the animal when the animal was crouched down.
Now, if we're right that if we're right that in the second case the animal didn't do anything, be a dime, he was stationary. That's what it sounds like, and the owners tripped over the animal. So why all of a sudden, in the third case, the animal's also stationary? It just happens to be that he's crouched down. And so what happened? The guy got injured on him anyway, also. So why in this case is the owner of the animal putter?
Not only that, but I'll even strengthen your question. Because if he's crouched down, then it's harder to see him, and you would think that we would say that the homeowner is less responsible for tripping over him. If the animal's standing up, he's more obvious, so that we could say the homeowner, you should have seen. If he's crouched down, we say to the homeowner, no, you shouldn't have seen. So even more so, the owner of the ox should have to pay.
Okay. Okay, let's go further.
The Rashi in that, though, is
Okay, let's see
going
what
to
the
make that a
Rashi.
more questionable question. For what actually does Ravatz mean? Crouching down, dropping. What does it mean, dropping down or crouching down? What does it say? But the Rashi is, because Salkadaita, you might have thought, Hashta, that now, Ravatz, he crouched down for Shiber Keli. He broke the utensils there, which is a different case than Nitekelbo or Balabayis, because that would, you can't get into it, use the phrase tripped on it, the Balabayis tripped on it. After Shirabais, after he crouched down.
Or,
So that or is a problem. The Shiva Keli we could say. The question is, would we say that this, so to speak, stationary animal that crouched down, right, there is an action, the action is crouching. From that stationary animal, that stationary item, would we say that that stationary item is creating a bore? And if it's creating a bore, we have the story about, that it's a shore, with an Adam, the chamor below kalim, that because that you're learning from that you're responsible for the person that gets injured, but not for the objects. If he breaks the kalim, you would think he'd be off the hook because the shore is creating a bore. And if he breaks objects, he would not be.
How do you know that when the shore crouches down, he has the status of a boar?
That's a question. Maybe I think that's who's going to say that. I think Shmuel would say that it's a status of a boar. He's creating an obstacle. He's creating the takala in the place. The takala in the place with the takala that he's creating would be considered a boar. It's not other categories. What other categories could it possibly be? Isn't a hazard like that any kind of a stationary hazard considered a boar? More than 10 tfachim? Stones more than 10 tfachim, a pit 10 tfachim, a mound 10 tfachim, considered a boar. And in a sense, when he crouches down, the animal itself is like a boar.
Okay.
But now, the other part about this that maybe you could explain with that is where the question says, I can understand the breaking the kalim, because that you definitely have a rule with. The animal's not responsible. The boar doesn't work for kalim. But there's a person who trips on it.
When he,
But he didn't get killed.
When he
He's not
crouches
dead.
down, he's not a boar.
yeah, when he crouched down,
He's
and
moving.
smashed on the thing,
Right.
he's moving.
Right.
So you can't say he's a boar at that time.
Well, he says he tripped on it. It says la'achar shiravatz. The Rashi says
That was or he tripped on it.
he tripped on it after a crash.
Either he crouched down and smashed the vessels, and that's the damage,
Right.
or after he crouched down, the owner tripped over him, and that's the damage. Two separate cases.
Right. Is the damage to a person or damage to the kalim?
In the second case, it's to the person. In the first case, it's to the kalim.
But if it's the same, but how is that different? How is case 3 different from case 2 when you just said
Case
if
2, he was standing. He wasn't crouched down.
okay, standing still, and this is crouching
We don't
down.
know if he's standing still or he's moving.
Okay, but I
It's
thought,
not
but wouldn't the boar be responsible for damage to a man, or not really, only unless he kills him?
A boar in the Rishus Rabbim.
Shor below Adam
Shore
is the
below.
drasha. Nafal shama shor b'chamor.
Fine. Shore below autumn.
He's
Okay, that's true. Shore below autumn, so you're only responsible for damage to a person. But also chamur, also not responsible for a kalim.
or below Kalim, yeah.
Right. Okay.
But you have to remember, is that talking about Miser? It's talking about
Just damage.
Nezik.
Right.
Stam bor is kedei lahamis. And Tvachim is kedei lahamis. The pasuk is talking about death.
Right.
Okay, in any case, let's see what the Gemora. Now, Rashi is saying over here, Kosok Daita Hashta. Rashi is saying that the Gemora is thinking now, at this point, that what's going on in this case of Ravatz, that the animal was putter, is either one of two possibilities. Either the animal crouched down and he broke Kalim, or the Balabais was likewise in the third case also injured because he tripped or slipped on the animal after the animal crouched down. So, okay, let's see what the Gemora has to say about this case. Roy, want to continue reading?
Mishum Derabetz Keturah. And because the ox dropped down, he is exempt.
So the Gemora is asking a bitmia.
Asking our question.
Why?
What the heck is going on?
Why
here?
should it be that just because the animal crouched down, all of a sudden now he's putter? You told me in the second case that he was the owner's liable, even if the animal was not active in the damage, and the owner tripped over him. So why all of a sudden when he crouches down is he putter? Doesn't make any sense.
Omer Rav Papa.
I'm Rav Papa.
May Rabbex. What's the meaning of dropped down?
Ravats. Right.
Shahir Ritz Galalim. It means that the ox let down and dropped down from it.
He didn't drop down, he dropped the dung down.
And the damage that the Bryce of the first two is the homeowner's garments were sullied by the dung. So the reason the ox's owner is exempt is
Why doesn't the owner just put his cloak in the washing machine? What's the damage over here?
because the dung is classified under the category of a bog. And we do not find an instance of a bog where the Torah holds the owner liable for damage to utensils.
Well, to answer your question, Rabbi, maybe the damage is that he has to pay for the cost of the washing machine. Has to pay for the quarter that you put in the washing machine. So you see how old I am. Probably now it's question.
How many quarters you have to put in the machine?
$10.
You can't even get enough quarters to put in the machine nowadays, right?
You need to bring a wheelbarrow full of quarters.
Oh wow, yeah.
It's about,
I don't know.
I think it's like $3 an hour or something like that.
So, yeah.
Actually, it might have been less. Cause how many years ago? I'm trying to remember how many years ago. I went. We were on vacation.
Last time I used the laundromat was probably 40 years ago.
We were on vacation. We had to use it in a hotel.
40 years ago, wow.
We used it. We used it in a hotel when we were on vacation.
Yeah?
And maybe it was about $1.50 or something like that. We had quarters of the machine.
When I got married,
This was by the national parks. One of the hotels.
Before I was married, that was when I used laundromat.
Okay. So,
We celebrated our 31st wedding anniversary next month.
in the laundromat? What? Oh, I see. 31st, wow. Mazel tov.
Thank you.
Many more.
Amen.
Okay. So, what's Rav Papa saying over here? Why is there no liability?
The damage is from the dung, and the dung is a bore, and we don't pay damages for kalim that are damaged by a bore.
Ah, because it says v'nafel shama shor v'chamor. Remember we saw this drasha.
Right. Shor v'lo kalim.
Yichra ish
Chamor v'lo adam. Chamor v'lo kalim.
Nafel shama shor v'chamor. Why does the Torah say shor and chamor? Shor is coming to exclude Adam,
Right.
and Hamor is coming to exclude Kalim.
Right.
That's what the Gemora says. So there's no liability when Kalim die in the bore.
Right.
And when they get broken, that's called that they died. So when they get stuff on them, that's called that they got. Now they can't be used anymore. So that's our question. Why doesn't he just go to the laundromat? Okay, kasha namaisi. All right, they didn't have laundromats back then.
Go to the river.
Go to the river. Yeah, go to the river. Why, I don't know what the liability. I don't know what the question is over here. So you got your thing dirty. So go clean it.
He's got to pay the shifka to take it and wash it. He's got to pay. There's damage. How much is the payment?
Damage. Okay. We got a long Rashi over here. Who wants to read the long Rashi? We got time for this long Rashi? We may as well start it.
Okay, after this, the dafka, and it has to be specifically kelov, it's utensils. About hu atzmo uzak, but if he himself was damaged,
Yeah.
he'd be chayav. Baal shul be chayav. The low patrinim, we wouldn't let him off the hook. He read patra.
Mishum
Because of the ish bor below shor bor. You couldn't just say, oh, if a man makes the bor and the shor didn't make the bor. Because remember, the shor is making the bor here, not the ish. You call all calls to call all of these BD of these, the ha BD are his is shad in the field at the time of the action occurring, the time the thing fell, so to speak. Could go, for example, Galilee, the dung coming out. Or could go, Shenifla, here it is, Shenifla, the Gamlo, his camel fell down. The low Hamin, he didn't pick it up.
Yeah.
Mechayiv
Didn't pick up what?
the camel. If the camel falls
Didn't
down,
stand the
he
camel.
has to stand the camel up. You can't leave. You can't.
Now the
leave.
camel's
It's blocking the road, and you can't get it to trip over. You have to pick the camel up.
Okay.
That's one case. Where was that?
well, what's called midi the habididei, b'shas tefillah.
All things that happen at the time of occurring.
Called midi the habididei. Everything which is the habididei, that's his,
That's his at the time.
belongs to him b'shas tefillah at the time
of it fall,
of the nefillah.
of it happening.
It's his thing. Kagon glalim. That's his thing.
The owner of the yacht.
It's not the animal. It's his.
Who's he?
The owner of the animal.
Yeah,
Right.
Bava sure.
Okay.
He's high.
So Rashi's explaining over here. He has a kasha. Wait a second. This, if you're going to say that the glal is a boar, so we have a principle. It says only when a man makes a boar. But when an animal makes a boar, there's no liability.
Oh.
So how can there be liability over here?
The liability. We have to go. The liability has to do because the liability that we're talking about. The liability is because it's a different thing at the time. And the shas tefillah is different than the achal tefillah. There's a difference between two types of times. Times when the action is happening, when somebody's responsible, and times that it's already stopped, and now you've had an ability to remove the situation. Your camel falls, the dung falls, you have time to clean it up before somebody trips on it. The camel falls, you have to pick it up before somebody trips on it. And I don't know if there's another case here that we're going to talk about.
But you're not answering the rabbi's question.
Yeah.
What difference does it make what time it is? The issue here is that the
Because
boar is created by the animal.
Right, and this is the same issue that we had just above.
Right.
Even though the boar was created by the animal, it's different when we get to a later time when he had to pay him back, and now that it gets transferred, the responsibility to the Bar Chatzer when it hasn't been, the obstacle has not been removed. It's two different time frames as to responsibility. Just like he didn't dig the boar anymore, and it's now transferred the responsibility. It's the same kind of concept of being transferred responsibility if you wait out the time. At the time of the boar, it's definitely the animal's responsibility. That's shas tefillah. But once the time has passed, now in a sense he has to pay for that damage, and now the responsibility gets transferred on the other person.
His boar because he didn't clean it up.
Because he didn't clean it up. He didn't clean up the glalim. He didn't whatchamacallit. He didn't pick his camel up. All those kind of cases like that. Just go. Okay, I gotta go. Be well.
Okay, you too.
Yeah,
Have a great day.
I'm gonna wash myself in the street for make sure I don't
Don't step in
any
it.
glalim and things like that, right?
Yep. Absolutely. Especially
You do have to watch yourself in
around
around the
here,
street
yeah,
and
with all the cats.
of everything. The streets itself is dangerous.
Absolutely.
Okay. Be well. Okay, so that's what Rashi's saying over here. Since at the time that the glal falls to the ground, the kol midi the habi day, everything which is like his, which is his thing, at the time that it falls, it go and glalim.
So the glalim is considered to be the property of
his
the
thing.
owner of the ox at the time it falls. So why do I care about that?
I think Rashi means it's like the same thing that he said above. We didn't really fully analyze this Rashi, how Rashi understands the previous case, why the owner of the chutzner is going to be liable to fill in the board. But I'm thinking that it's the same type of an idea.
But didn't we analyze that and say that it was because he was paid? When he was paid?
That's what Tosfos said.
Right.
But if you look at what Rashi says, that's not what Rashi says.
Oh.
Rashi has a different way of explaining that Gemora. We didn't look at it.
I see.
If we look at the Rashi said over there, Hachal Kemen da Islay Lamalia. Look at what Rashi said. Here, in this case, when the person's shore dug a bore in the owner's property, and we say that the owner is responsible for damage that the bore does because he was responsible, he was required to fill it in and he didn't do so.
Right.
Explained Rashi, Mikame de Lifkare. He was already responsible, meaning, it says it's a run on Rashi. When I say a run on Rashi, there's two types of Rashis. There's a Rashi where you just see the Dibra Maskin, you just see the caption,
Right.
and those are the words from the Gemora. And Rashi has a comment to say that it's pertinent to those words.
Right.
But there's no real connection between the caption and the comment of Rashi. But here is a run on Rashi. That means that Rashi is running on from the caption. He's continuing with the words of the caption. The caption says, "Hacha kemer de islay lamalia." Here, since he had an obligation to fill it in, mikame de lifkare. Already before he made the bor hefker, he had this. It was already upon him this obligation to fill in the bor.
Right.
Why is that so? Says Rashi, "Doha bor didehu." That bor is shaykh to him. Why is that bor shaykh to him? The other guy's animal dug it. Rashi says, "Doha bor didehu." It's exactly the same lashon that Rashi says by in this long Rashi over here. Kol midei dahabi didei b'shas tefillah. It's his thing. It's something that's shaykh to him. He owns the animal. The animal is...
No, he doesn't own the animal. But you're saying it's the owner of the animal who owns the boar?
Rashi is... I'm talking about the two cases over here. The cases I'm saying, these two Rashis, if you look at the two Rashis, it seems to me that the reasoning that Rashi is giving is the same in both.
Right.
Right? We're talking about a case where, in the case of the first Rashi said, why does he have to fill it in?
That's the owner of the courtyard.
Owner of the courtyard. Why does he have to fill it in?
Because it's his board.
Bor Dedehu. It's his board. It's connected to him.
So why is it his board? He didn't dig it. He didn't give permission. He didn't agree. Why is Rashi saying it's his board?
Okay, that's a good question.
Okay.
But at the end of the day, that's what Rashi said.
That's what he's saying.
And
Okay.
therefore, I'm not saying you don't have. You have a good question.
Okay.
I don't know what to answer you off the top of my head, but I see that Rashi says this thing.
Okay.
It's didehu. Oh, and therefore he's got a responsibility. He's the one that has the responsibility to remove the board.
Right.
Oh, so too in this case of when the guy's animal drops in the Rishusa Rabbim, he drops the glowing. Rashi said, don't say that the glal is not a board because an animal cannot make a board. Says Rashi, because why? Because it's the bore of the. It's not the bore that the animal. Forget about the fact that the animal made the bore. We don't care about that. Also, in the case of the balachotzer, he didn't make the bore, and nevertheless, we're saying that he's responsible to fill it in.
Right.
Why is that?
Here.
Didehu. Says Rashi.
The dung is his.
Kol midi dahabi didei. As long as it's here, it's more of a thing. Why it's shaykh to him because it's his animal.
No, it's not his animal. We're talking about the owner of the
I'm
courtyard.
talking about the case now, the case that we're talking about now, the second case.
The second case is also, we're saying it's the
The guy's animal. The guy's animal.
oh, the second case we're saying it's the owner of the ox. Have a good day.
No.
It's the owner of
Oh,
the
right.
ox
Be well.
who is responsible for payment. Is that
Yes.
right? Okay,
Yes.
so now the statement Didehu makes sense in this context.
The kom, it makes more sense, yeah, because it's his animal.
Right.
It's easier to hear. Kom midi de habi didei b'shas nefila, as long as it's shaykh to him at the time that it falls. Kigon glalim u'kigon shenoflo kamaloi below himida. Chayvinin lei mishum bor. We're going to make him liable for bor. V'afugav de'iu lo karya, even though he didn't dig it. Ela gamal karo. The gamal made the bor. He's the one that fell down in the Rishus Rabim. He made himself a bor. The animal made himself a bor. So when an animal makes a bor, there's no liability. No, says Rashi, there is liability. There's liability. It's a different type of a liability because we're putting an obligation. We're even though we're saying that the guy didn't dig the bor, the owner of the animal didn't dig the bor, but that's not going to get him off the hook. Because we're going to put on him the responsibility to remove that bor that was made. We're not saying you made the bor, but you're required to remove it. Why am I required to remove it? Because it's Didehu. It's yours. Why is it mine? Well, here we're saying it's easier to understand. It's his animal. It's his animal.
It's your animal.
So even though he didn't dig the bor, the animal dug the bor. Came into b'shas nefila didehu. Since at the time that the bor was created, when the animal fell down, it was his. V'alei l'seluke, and therefore it was on him to remove it, to remove the obstacle from the Rishus Rabim or wherever it was. Kamo Dikaria Ihu Dami. It's therefore regarded in the halacha as though he dug it, says Rashi. This is how Rashi learns both of these cases over here. The afugav, the mafkir le basar chaita. And even if he's going to mafkir the animal, he's going to mafkir the glau. Doesn't help.
Because he was the owner before he mafkired it.
Right. It was his before, and at that time that it was his, boom, you got a responsibility to get it out of the way. So now that you got a responsibility to get it out of the way, it's not good enough to say, oh no, I'm going to be mafkired. It's not mine anymore. No. The obligation to remove it already was chal. Already was effective upon you. And you can't remove that responsibility simply by saying, I don't own it anymore, and making it mafkir.
Right.
So he said that point in both cases.
Okay.
In the first case, in the first Rashi he said, Hacha kaven de islay lamalia, since he had already an obligation on him to fill in that bor, that the other guy's animal that came into his chutzner without permission dug. And Rashi said, "Bekamei the mifkarei." Before he mafkared it, so he can't get out of it. If he's not going to remove that bor, we're going to regard it as though he dug it. That's the way Rashi explains this case.
Right.
It has nothing to do with receiving payment from anybody, the right to receive payment for any damage.
Well,
because
it
in this case with the gamal, there's nobody that's paying him anything.
But that's the owner of the gamal we're talking about, right?
True.
Here we're not talking about the owner of the ox. So we could still say, why do we say didehu? Why do we say it's his? Because he was paid. We could still say that.
Not according to Rashi, you can't say that.
Why not?
Because Rashi doesn't say that.
But Rashi just states it as a fact that it's his. Right?
Because
So
it's
we
his
wanna say
property.
Why?
It's on his property.
Well, that's your interpretation. So I'm saying if you're going to give an interpretation,
We know that it's his property.
we know that
We
it's
know
his
it's his
property.
property. We don't know that
It's his pit.
that Rashi holds that the guy is getting the reason that Rashi holds is because he got paid. That's something that if Rashi said that if Rashi holds that he'd have to say it.
He'd have to
Like
say
Tosfos says it.
Therefore, we have to assume that Rashi does not hold that way.
Yeah.
Therefore, we have to assume that Rashi's reason is simply because it's the property of the homeowner that the pit exists inside of.
He has a responsibility to see that his property doesn't damage people.
Right.
So even if he's not responsible, even if he can't simply say, "Well, I didn't make the pit."
Right.
Yeah, but it's your place. It's your place.
It's your property.
I'm gonna get some more milk.
You have to make sure that your place doesn't damage people.
Right. I hear you.
The afugav the mafkir le goster shaita, even if he's going to be mafkir the animal after the fact, or mafkir the glalim after it's fallen on the ground,
Or the pit.
or the pit, he cannot escape liability for failing to fulfill to do his duty to remove the obstacle.
Because the ownership stuck to him.
Oh, now says Rashi, "V'lo domi l'shoro shechafar bor reshus harabi."
It's not similar.
Dechafiro lav didehi.
Or in the
Talking about a different case now. Let's
he
say
doesn't own it.
He owns a shore, and his shore dug a bore in the Reshus Harabi.
Right. So now we say that he doesn't own the board
How you doing?
because it's the Reshus Harabim. Therefore, we say that it's the ox that dug the board in that
Gotta
case.
eat.
We never throw it back upon the owner of the ox because it was in the Reshus Harabim. Correct?
Yeah. Right. Right. If you'll say, but it's your animal. You got a responsibility to remove the boar because it's your animal. No, because the Torah says he chafar ishor below shore boar.
Right. That specifically exempts it. So otherwise you'd say, what does that precept apply to? You have to have a case the precept applies to.
Very good, very good. Very good, right? We know the pasuk's got to apply somewhere. Where does the drasha apply? We didn't really see the drasha yet. The drasha is later on in the Gemora. But your thought is on the mark. Very good. We're going to say that that's where it applies. And then he brings another case. Udalil, the nafkir beregel atarnagol. Mi'alav. The dalil lav didehu. The dalil, it's on the foot of the chicken that caused damage. Is not his. Okay, we don't know that case. We have to look it up.
Yeah, I think we have to stop.
We gotta stop. Test.